Welcome to Fairy Tale Access, where the head fairy's quest is to prove that fairy tales do exist in actual time rather than once upon a time. Together, we will unravel the heroes, young and old, who turn dreams into reality. These are the people who still believe in happily ever after. The discoveries will bend even our most cynical non-believers into believing in fairy tales. Hi, welcome to Fairy Tale Access. Today, I'm excited to introduce you to author Thomas Davis from New Jersey by Skype with what you might think is a small book, but is a wicked, action-packed adventure. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. This book was so much fun to read. I loved Jake. I loved his adventure. I loved his friends, his enemies that became friends. How did you come up with this?
Well, Jake, when I came up with the character for Jake, I took a lot of my own insecurities and phobias and just poured them into this poor kid and let him deal with deal with how to cope with these things. Mm-hmm. A lot of personal experiences and a lot of lessons learned over the years. And I just had this idea for this futuristic society that lived like in these globes in outer space, where the city's on the outside of the globe and the sky's in the center. The aesthetics just really jumped out at me.
I like that too. I like the little areas where they could go and just be like weightless.
Yeah, that just came to me while I was writing. I was like, okay, what's an interesting little trial I can put him through? And he has this fear, like, let me set it up. So on the space stations, there are these areas where the gravity isn't as strong as it should be. This particular area is called nowhere. So Jake, he heard this story about this kid that jumped up and floated away, and no one ever found him again. So he was really terrified of suffering through that same fate. So in these areas, the kids would gather. You can jump up in the air. You float up to about 20 feet in the air and float back down. So at one point in the story, he has to jump clear across to the other side of the station with help from an alien. But yeah, it was a really fun little thing to come up with.
What about the girlfriend he meets? Well, the girl that becomes a friend. That's an alien.
Adiola. She's from a race called the Arez that the humans have been. I wanted it to be kind of like a Romeo and Juliet meets Star Wars type story where these two kids meet while they're young and they have a profound effect on each other. And after this meeting, it changes them both forever, and they go on to become powerful people within their own societies.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
How many books are in the series before we get to that point?
Well, this originally was book 1, but I changed it to book 3 because I wanted to get straight to the action. Currently, we're currently on book 8, which is The Bloodless Revolution.
Oh, okay, that looks good.
And just had the cover redone for book 4, which was The Daughters of Death. And the story follows Jake and Adiola through like the next 11, 12 years of their lives. And Jake becomes a soldier, and Adiola, she's a princess of her planet, and she's trying to reform the society into a more non-violent people.
What about should be the woman that kind of caused the disruption?
Oh, Catherine Fisher?
Yes.
Catherine, when I came up with Catherine, I wanted to create another version of Jake, someone who got to a later point in their lives without learning the important lessons that he's learning at the beginning of the book. So you see, like, even as an adult, she's being bullied by her boss, she's being trampled upon, and since she doesn't have the same tools that Jake's learning in the story, she goes down a darker path. She lets herself. She bends situations into. She she pushes the situation into a path that there's no return from. And when I write villains, I like to put her in a perspective where she's not doing this out of malice. She's doing this because she's afraid of not being relevant, and she's afraid of continuing her life staying the way it is at that point.
I don't know. There was one part where she shut a door that was really kind of evil. She really meant that.
Yeah, she was really overcome by her own anger and pain at that moment and did something terrible.
Yeah, I was like, wow,
but that's what
she's
most
so
villains
evil. Do. Yeah, and then, and it was great the way he did it because it was so like sinister, sleazy, scary. It's like,
yeah, because she had so much animosity towards that person,
right? And then, but later when they're all being transported, and
oh yeah,
I was like, oh, she's psycho, great.
Oh yeah, and she's developing. She finally found something that she felt powerful in.
Right, but it was scary because she found an interest in Jake too. She found a reason to be interested in that poor kid.
Yeah,
and I'm like, oh, he's just a kid. She's evil. I want to see where this goes.
She's a dangerous person. She goes from being a victim to a victimizer, and
definitely,
and that's because she doesn't have the tools to actually find a healthy way to empower herself. So she goes down a dark path to feel powerful.
Yeah, I think you can see that with some conflicts around the world too. So what did you really want your readers to get out of the series?
I wanted to promote just the usual stuff like the power of friendship and and to not judge, and to when you see someone that's the opposite of you and if they seem threatening, to actually get to know that person, actually get to actually try to empathize with what they're going through. Like even the aliens, Adiola's sister, when she does her horrible act, it's because she doesn't understand what happened and she's reacting to something. She's reacting to a pain that she's feeling. Like these people did something that's so horrible, but then she goes and does something way more horrible than what they did.
Yeah, isn't that awful? Oh
yeah.
Gosh. It was so well done. What's your background? What led you to writing?
When I was a kid, I used to illustrate comic books. My illustrations were good, but they weren't professional level good. So when I had the idea to write this story back in before 2017, but 2017 is when I actually put pen to paper or finger to keyboard to really start jotting it down. And I've already forgotten the question. I might have answered it, but I forgot what it was.
I think you kind of answered it. We'll move on for a moment to the smart devices that were used throughout the story. How important is technology to you today?
Very, very important. I'm addicted to this thing. And as you can tell from the story, Jake was addicted to his also. So in the story, we have a smart device called a Navi. Mm-hmm. And what it's used for is basically used for everything that an iPhone, that an Android device is used for, except that the humans in the story, they have this. They don't have a religion anymore, but they do have a scientific method to back up their memories onto a heaven-like server when they die, called Shangri-La. And so basically I'm gonna get to that. Basically, the Navi device can also be used to back up your memories to the server. And it's kind of like when you're on your phone and you're constantly fiddling with it. Because as the story goes along, Jake is obsessed with backing up his memories, even though he's not creating significant memories half the time. But as he starts forming this relationship with Adiola, he starts to move away from the crutch of his smart device. He starts to use it less and less because he's living more. and there's a piece of code that I put throughout the book. It's like this little piece of code that I don't really explain what it is, but it pops up like crazy at the beginning of the book. And that code is Jake's personal place it's his personal link to the Shangri-La server. Everyone has a different number. Everyone has a different serial number associated with the server. So that number pops up, so that link pops up again and again in the book with little to no explanation. And halfway through the book, it stops popping up because Jake's he's not uploading his memories at all anymore.
Yeah. I spent a lot of time looking for that link on the internet.
Oh, sorry about that. It's supposed to be a storytelling device, not an actual link.
Yeah, that's okay. I figured it out later, I mean, it definitely explains itself later, but fine.
Yeah, it was a fun little thing to throw in there.
Yeah, but you should get a link and have something cool on the end so we can all get our numbers. But
all right, that's good thought. That's a good idea.
Well, no, I was like, Shangri-La, yay. But there's something. Wait, is this not real? What do you mean it's not real?
No, it's a random link. I actually put my birth date in the link also, just for a little bit of fun.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so what's the big deal with pizza? Is that something that you really like? Is it something big in New Jersey?
Oh, I told you, New Jersey is famous for how good our pizza is. I say it's better than New York's pizza because everyone goes on about how New York and Chicago have the best pizza, but New Jersey is up there. I would say it's the best pizza in the country. And I wanted to incorporate that because I think food is something that really connects people. So
it really makes you hungry, though, the way you explain it in the book. So
yeah,
I was dying for pizza.
That's the idea. It's
not to go
it's
to
a
New
good
Jersey.
way to it's a great way to form a connection to the reader also, because we all tasted pizza, we've all eaten food, so you put a shared experience like that into a piece of fiction. While it doesn't seem like it's important, while it doesn't seem like it forwards the plot at some points, it does connect you to the characters, which is the most important aspect of writing the book. It's like most times the story is there to challenge the characters and help them grow, put them into situations that they have to overcome, because the investment should always be with the characters, where I find that some fans, they like the lore more than they like the characters. And it's a weird little thing right there.
I don't know. I like the way it all fits together. It was just a great action-packed story. I couldn't put it down until I finished it.
Awesome.
And
and
then I wanted more.
Yeah, the story starts off in a very mundane way. Like I really take you through the little things that Jake's going through, like his bully at school, his feeling like an outcast, like showing these little insignificant things about his life before the situation around him really explodes and becomes like this galactic level threat. So it's kind of grounding you in the world before we yank the rug out from under you.
I know. And I love the way that you depicted his parents in this, where one was a robot.
Oh yeah, frames. So
frames, yeah.
Okay, so in the story, people that die and go to Shangri-La, you can actually re-download their memories into a robotic body called a frame. So Jake's mother died during childbirth, and Jake's mother died during childbirth, so his father had her memories downloaded into a frame that pretty much is just her in a robotic body, and she even wears like the clothes she used to wear back when she was alive. But they still have marital problems, which is I like realistic things like that, like little issues that they have with each other, even if it's not like huge, it's like little things, like he gets on her nerves really. At some point he makes jokes that she doesn't find funny anymore, and she's a bit bossy to him. And Yeah, like I always hate when stories they're about to like kill off a spouse and they get together and it's like, oh my god, we're so happy. Yeah, let's we're so happy, and then they're like, okay, so you're setting up to kill this person off, but it's show a real relationship, like because real relationships, people they bicker, they have differences that they work through constantly.
Right. Well, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
But it did remind me in that respect, there were little spots. Remember the Jetsons? It was a cartoon. It's really
Yeah,
old.
Jetsons. Yeah,
Yeah.
everybody.
It reminded me of bits of that with a really new, lively twist.
Yeah, like if George was married to Rosie.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. It was so cute. And I felt so bad for Jake, I
Yeah.
at the beginning. And, you're so like, well, I think as an older adult reading the book, you're so impressed with the choices that he's making for himself and how he sticks by his friends.
Yeah.
And
that decision he makes at the end of the book isn't a decision that he would have been strong enough to make at the beginning of the book. And that's kind of like the point of literature. You craft a journey, you create a person with all these flaws, and even though all those most of those flaws are still there by the end, they progressed enough to be a stronger person by the end of the book.
Definitely. Now back to the question that we messed up earlier.
Oh, and because
what do you
we're all the way
do
up to book 9. He's got a lot of growing to do.
Wow. All right, but back to that original question about your background. Okay. Like, what was your background? What did you go to school for? What do you do for work? Are you a full-time writer? Like, what kind of influences do you have to turn out a series like this compelling for young readers to just like grab onto?
Well, right now I'm not a full-time writer. I work a day job. I repair gym equipment. It's kind of it can get a little rough sometimes. I'm from both parents are still alive, still together after all these years. Mm-hmm. They live down south in Georgia.
Ooh, that plays in. I get it. Okay, go ahead. I just like to know because it just reminds me of like how you created the people in the story. Like,
yeah, because you pick up on little personality traits and how people interact. So you get to see these two people interact with each other. And when you're a kid, you tend to just idolize your parents. But then as an adult, if you're fortunate enough to still have your parents as an adult, you can really see them as people. And you can see all their little flaws, all of their little idiosyncrasies, or all the way that they're human. You can really. And if you're mature enough, you can accept them as humans, and you can accept all their flaws, and you can look back on how they raised you, and you can really appreciate how good they did, regardless of how flawed they are.
That's true. What about travel? Did you do any traveling anywhere that led you to create parts of the world that you built?
I did some traveling. I've been to the tropics once. I been up and down the East Coast. I really want to visit Japan at some point. That's like, I'm a big anime nerd, and Japan is like the motherland for people who like Japanese animation and manga comics. Yeah, I definitely want to do more travel. I just got my vaccinations for COVID, so I'm looking forward to really getting out of the house and getting out of Jersey after this is done.
I know. I just want to get out of my state anywhere.
But yeah, you start to feel trapped in your state.
Definitely.
Yeah. I think next week I might go up to my brother's place in upstate New York to visit him and his family, see how they're doing.
Oh, that'll be great. I know, it feels like you kind of have freedom. But it was less than 200 pages. But it was seriously... It was so full of action. So are all the books in the series this length, or do some of them get longer or shorter?
There's a few that are a bit longer, but not much longer. I think the longest book is about 250, 260 pages. And I was really inspired by like Star Wars movies in the Marvel universe, where you have these stories that are part of a larger narrative. So each book I consider a movie. So you just read The Red Girl, which is its own little movie, and you see at the end of the book, it completes this story. It completes what it's trying to do, but it also plants the seeds for the next book in the series or the next continuation. And each book is like that, where they tell like a self-contained story while setting up little threads that feed into the larger narrative.
I know, but it's going to be one of those series that's going to be hard to let go of, because you don't really want it to be fun.
Yeah. I finished writing the final book in the series. I'm really happy with how it came out.
Wow.
Actually, when I was writing book 8, because the last book in the series is 9. As I was writing book 8, I wrote the final chapter to the entire series for book 9, and I had kind of worked my way there. I was planning to write the 2 books at the same time, but I ended up just putting all my energy into book 8, and it worked out for the best because I really needed to focus on it.
What about the other series you're working on? The Glass Runner, or is it the Glass Runner?
Oh, the Glass Runner is the second book. Is the second book in the series.
It's the second book in the series.
Yeah. That guy you see on the cover with the blue coat flowing off his shoulders in the exosuit, that's Jake. That's Jake 10 years later.
Oh, he's really growing up.
Yeah, he's an adult, and he's a soldier. And you finally get to figure out what a versatile layer is in the second book, because that's the make of the exosuit that he wears. So exosuits are called versatile layers because they augment your physical abilities and make you faster. And he's so good at using his, and because his mind works differently, he sees things differently than other people. He's become so adept at using his that at a few points he's managed to run across glass using it. So you can run on a wall like the Matrix, but Jake can run on a storefront glass and not shatter it. That's how talented he is using it.
Wow. What kind of research did you have to do for that? Because you make it all sound like legitimate science, possibly futuristic, but
that's the fun thing about science fiction. If you mull it over enough in your head, you can figure out how it works. And you don't really have science behind it. Well, some people do, but I'm more of a space opera. I like to mainly focus on the characters and build out the science around them, but have plausible explanations for how the science works, but not really dig deep into it.
okay.
So I have my aesthetic, which is like the space colonies. It all looks like 1920s America back. It all looks like 1920s America. People dress like the 1920s, and it's kind of like a little steampunk vibe to it. Like the robots have like a kind of like a Buck Rogers look to them.
Okay. That fits. But they're really cute. There's a lot.
But then you go to Adiola's world, and it's like a fantasy world. Like, you really got to get into her part of the story, because her part of the story really opens up, because we follow both of the characters down their separate paths, coming back together. What were you about to ask?
I forgot.
It's your turn.
Thanks. No, I think there's that whole Star Wars, Star Trek kind of twist to it, but it was just so fresh and new and just really different.
Oh, thank you.
Because you look at the front cover and you're like, what? But then it all comes together in the book, and it plays out so incredibly. It's so fun. I had such a good time reading it.
Yeah, I love looking, especially with the front cover. I love how exotic the Arez look. Like, they're all like, the average height is about 6'5". They all have like these wild hair colors, and they have red skin. Like during the book, like Jake didn't know that like Adiola was a year younger than him because to him she's tall and she looks like an adult, but
Right.
she's in the same boat as he is. She doesn't really understand what's going on either. She's still figuring herself out just the same way he is.
But the picture of Jake behind you is exactly how I would picture him.
Yeah, he's a goofy kid. He's a goofy kid with a genius level IQ. He thinks he knows everything, but he's got no common sense. Because who else would open an alien space pod by accident? Someone who's too smart for their own good, but doesn't understand what they're doing.
No, we would all open that. What? You wouldn't open that? I would be there in a second. Like, I want to see
Okay.
what's inside. Yeah, that part was totally, it was all really well done, really believable, really enjoyable. Love the twists and turns. You know,
And that was a
there's,
fun scene to write.
oh, and the one, but I mean, there were some horrifying scenes that really like made you gasp. I love the range of emotions that you could pull from us just reading through it.
Yeah, because you're reading this story, this kind of like heartwarming story, but then there's like a 9/11 level event that happens near the end of the book, and you're out on all the little things you were holding on to are just stripped away.
Yeah, but it all comes together. And it's just like, oh, it's so well done. I had fun.
Okay,
I can't wait
thanks.
to read more.
All right, awesome. I hope to hear from you when you read those.
Yeah. So what are you off to next? Is there going to be another series after this?
I just finished the Versatile Layer series, and right now I'm writing two books at the same time. I'm trying to figure out which path I'm going to go down. One is a book about vampires. I'm trying to make it into a comedy, like a black comedy. And the other book's like a fantasy book about all these warrior nuns with these special powers.
Warrior nuns.
Yeah,
All right. That'll be different.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing so much about how you created the versatile layers. This series is going to be action-packed.
I can't wait for the movies.
I know. I can't wait for the movies either. It's the only sensible thing to do next.
Yeah, they were written like movies, and that's what they're. that's the goal.
I know. It's just, it always amazes me that, you know, somebody can tell such a powerfully impacted story in 200 pages or less and make me feel like I've read a novel.
Yeah, that's the fun thing. I like to keep things moving along. I like to set up the goals of a particular scene, hit those goals, and then keep moving. And I actually write all my stories out of order. So I'll write the first chapter and I'll write the last chapter, and I'll jump chapter to chapter and write whatever scene pops into my head. And the last scene I have left is always the hardest one to write because that's the one you have to write and you have to find inspiration for.
Wow, that's crazy. Do you have like little maps on the wall and stuff?
No, I'll just have I'll have the major I'll have the theme because the theme is like the most important thing. I'll have the major plot points I want to hit, and then the action set pieces, and it's all just figuring out how they piece together, how they all fit.
Great. Well, thanks again. And you have a wonderful week. We're looking forward to more in the series. And until next time, keep asking questions. And if you want a great series that'll totally entertain you, the Versatile Layer books and The Red Girl will definitely keep you up and going.